prepared. All right, the next content will be the importance of research. Okay, why do we embark on research? We already discussed. Okay, we want to solve problems. Okay, there are issues and problems happening in the organization, okay, or in a certain context. So these issues or problems need to be solved. So human being face problem, same goes to animals. Okay, so through research we will get findings or results which can help to partly or probably to completely solve the issues problem faced not only by human but also animal. Of course the animal will not do the research. Okay, the human beings, we as a researcher, we embark on the research which will help to solve some of the problems, okay, faced by animals. Okay, all right, now research also is expected to contribute significantly to the body of knowledge. So through research we will develop new laws. Okay, we will be updating laws, we will be developing new theory, we will be revising existing theory or model or framework. Okay, I'm sure you have learned management subject and you have come across human needs theory, okay, by Maslow. You know that pyramid shape, you have got that 5 layer different needs. Okay, these needs may be differ when it comes to this time and age. Okay, for example, in this time and age, okay, it is quite common for almost everyone to use handphone, mobile phone. So this has become a very basic necessity. But if you look at that pyramid, you cannot fit this handphone to any of these element or any layer of the theory. So you may need to update that theory through research. Same goes to model and frameworks. There are so many models that we have learned, you know, in different subjects, in different courses. Some of this model may need to be updated. Okay, because as you know, as time passes, there are a lot of changes that are taking place. So some of the elements of the model as well as the framework may no longer be applicable, may no longer be suitable to the context and also the time. So it will require some modification. So these changes will be done or achieved through the conduct of study or research. So the findings of the study will normally update the model or the framework. That's why it's quite common in social science research as well as management research, like in our field, information science, information management, knowledge management, or even information systems. We will be developing what we call theoretical framework. Okay, so this theoretical framework is being developed based on existing theories, model. Okay, and then we will collect data, we will analyze the data, and from there we will either support or refute the hypothesis. Because when we develop the framework, it will come together with hypothesis. This is for quantitative research. Now through research also we will be developing new methods. Okay, later on in our subsequent chapter, we will be discussing a different types of method in research. For example, we have got survey method, ethnography method, we have got grounded theory method, we have got case study method. These are different types of method for doing research. And research also can come up with a new method of doing research. So not necessarily we adopt existing method advocated by methodologists in many research method textbook. We as a researcher can also develop new method. And of course, when it comes to techniques, okay, we have got statistical techniques, we have got data collection techniques. Okay, we can also develop new techniques through research. We can improve existing tools, software, hardware, or even equipments. Okay, the tools, the hardware, the software, the gadget that you are using now in our day-to-day work, day-to-day life are actually the results of research. And this tool, this equipment sometimes become irrelevant as time passes. For example, we are so used to using typewriter. I know some of you may not you may have not seen what is typewriter, but during my time I used typewriter. I learned how to use typewriter, but now typewriter is no longer being used. Okay, people are using laptop computers, okay, desktop computers, and now smartphone has become more advanced, more sophisticated. Many of the tasks that we normally use using many of the tasks that we normally use computers or desktop are now being replaced by our smartphones. All right, now through research also it can inform us on how to improve current practice, okay, the way we do things, standard operating procedure. Okay, the existing procedure may no longer become efficient, may no longer become effective because of the changes in the environment, changes in the infrastructure, changes in terms of the user's ability, competencies. Okay, because of this changes that taking place, so the practice also need to be changed. So how are we going to change the practice? It is through research. So we embark on the research. Okay, we try to identify how we can improve the current practice, and research also is meant to enhance our well-being, our health status, our social status, our economic well-being, political well-being. Many aspects of human life can be improved greatly through research, through the findings of research. Okay, even in an organizational context, business enterprises, they need to have one unit called business development or R&D unit, research and development unit. So the research has to be ongoing. Okay, if they continue maintaining the old product or services, people will gradually switch to another product or services. So they have to keep on improving in terms of their quality. Okay, in terms of their product quality, service quality. This is done through research. This is the importance why we need to do research. That's why we in academic we have to learn or how to do scientific research. All right, now research has to be rigor. Okay, it has to be very thorough, very rigor, very comprehensive. Okay, so in order for us to understand what is meant by rigor in research, we have to understand this different approach to doing research. Okay, in social science and management, generally there are two approaches to doing research. Number one is called quantitative research, and the other one is called qualitative research. Now, for quantitative research, normally you will collect data in the form of numbers. Okay, and these data will be analyzed using statistical analysis. Okay, statistical tools, statistical technique. Okay, in contrast, we have another type of research which is called qualitative research. Okay, now qualitative research do not actually collect data in the form of numbers. Okay, so it collect data, qualitative data which appear in the form of words, sentences, responses. When you interview people, people will give the responses, so the responses appear in sentences, in words, right? So these are also data, and these data need to be analyzed, and these data we have to analyze using certain techniques, okay, such as content analysis or thematic analysis, okay, in order to find the meanings. All right, so this is called qualitative research. Okay, so quantitative research use statistic, qualitative research do not use statistics. So this is the general classification of two research approaches. Okay, we will be discussing at length later on when we will reach in chapter 3. All right, so quantitative research, okay, normally you will have hypothesis. Okay, research hypothesis. So you collect data. When you have enough responses, you will analyze the data using statistical techniques, and then you will test the hypothesis. So the results will help to either support or reject the hypothesis. But in qualitative research, normally you will not develop the hypothesis in the initial stage. Certain qualitative research will end up developing hypothesis. Okay. Right, now this is another explanation about qualitative and quantitative research. So quantitative research deals with numbers, statistics. Qualitative research deals with words and meanings. Okay, so allow us to have in-depth experience understandings about certain phenomenon. Okay, now how do you address rigor in quantitative research? Now, in quantitative research, we address rigor by being specific, narrow, specific, concise, and objective in the design and analysis technique. So, in quantitative research for social science research and management, we'll be using a method such as survey. So, survey normally will use questionnaire as a data collection technique. Okay, so you have to develop the questionnaire thoroughly. It has to undergo what we call the pre-test and then the pilot test, and then you have to make sure that you address validity, reliability. All right, so this is how you actually making sure that the design of the research is very comprehensive. Okay, and then you have to really follow all the steps in sequence. You cannot miss the pre-test, for example, or even the pilot test, because that will affect the final results. So if you really follow the prescription steps in doing the research, then you will end up fulfilling or addressing the rigor in quantitative research. Now, in contrast, for qualitative research, now we don't actually skew ourselves into a very specific or narrow as in quantitative research, but we try to be very open with the data that we collect, and then using our certain philosophical view or perspective, we will try to understand meaning in the data. Okay, we try to be very open, try not to have some bias. Of course, that has to be avoided. That means the influence by researcher must be reduced as minimum as possible, and try to understand the data, the meaning from the data, and how theory will emerge from the data. All right, so this is the way we address rigor in qualitative research. Okay, there are certain elements, okay, which can be used as the yardstick or indicators for measuring rigor, both in quantitative and also qualitative. Now, for quantitative, we have got these four elements. The first one is called validity, number two, reliability, the third one is generalizability, and the fourth one is called objectivity. Okay, sorry, I had skipped that fourth point, but I have it in another slide. So validity means we have to make sure that the data is really very accurate. Okay, here we have in this slide, we have a more complete definition for each of the aspect. Okay, validity, we have to make sure that the method, the technique really measures, accurately measures what it is supposed to measure. Okay, that is validity. Okay, so later on when we discuss quantitative research, especially in survey research, we'll be talking about pre-test. So pre-test is one of the method where we can address validity. Okay, now reliability is the extent to which the results can be reproduced when the research is repeated under the same conditions. That means you will get consistent findings. Okay, in survey research, especially when you are using questionnaire, there is a specific measurement for measuring reliability. One of them is called Cronbach alpha, and then we have also composite reliability. Okay, like in for validity also there is a specific measurement. Later on we will explore further. We have like convergent validity, discriminant validity. So these are the jargons, the specific terms which you have to start familiarizing yourself. Later on when we reach that data analysis part, we will explore hands-on, and from there you can slowly, gradually absorb and understand in full or fully the meaning of this validity and reliability. Now, generalizability is concerned to the extent to which the findings that you obtain from the sample can be applied to the population. Remember, when you collect data, you don't collect from every member in the population. You only engage sample. Through sampling, okay, only a portion of the population will be engaged or involved in the study. But through proper sampling, if you have enough sample, the findings can be applied. Even though, let's say, the population is 1,000, you will not collect from 1,000 member, okay, in the population. You will only probably need to take like 300 member, okay, sample, okay. But the results that you analyze based on these 300 samples can be applied to the population. So this is called generalizability. So in quantitative research, this is one of the criteria we assess rigor. Now, the last one is called objectivity. Objectivity is that we draw conclusion based on the results that we obtain. Remember, I've been telling you from the first part of the lecture on definition, we have to collect data. Okay, we collect data from the field, we analyze the data. So the results we interpret, okay, that will lead to our conclusion. So when we draw our conclusion, we have to make sure that it is purely based on the data that we collect, okay, based on the results that we analyze from the data that we collect. All right, now how do we address rigor in qualitative research? Okay, sorry, I made a mistake. Okay, guys, this is supposed to be qualitative, okay, in the slide. Okay, please take note of that error. This is supposed to be qualitative research. Now, this rigor in qualitative research is also called trustworthiness. Okay, trustworthiness. We will address this again when we talk about qualitative data analysis. Okay, so there are 4 criteria in qualitative research for addressing or looking into rigor. One is called credibility, number 2 dependability, number 3 transferability, number 4 is confirmability. Okay, credibility means how confident we are about the truth that we obtain from the research findings. How confident you are. Okay, in statistics, we have degrees of freedom, confidence, right? 95%. So like in qualitative, we cannot quantify that confidence. Okay, but there must be a mechanism, a way, a technique, okay, or a measure that we look into making sure that our findings is really credible. Okay, now dependability is the stability of findings over time and under different conditions. How solid, how strong is the findings? Okay, so that means it is not being specific on certain time, but over time the findings to some extent is still applicable. Okay, all right. Transferability, this is almost equivalent to generalizability in quantitative research, but it is not exactly the same. Now, if you look at generalizability, you study a phenomenon, okay, on a particular population based on sample. So the findings you try to apply to the remaining member of the population. That is called generalizability. But in transferability means you study a certain phenomenon in a certain context, but the findings can be to some extent applied or transferred in a different context that is almost equivalent. Example, you study about, say, knowledge sharing behavior in the Faculty of Information Management. Okay, so the findings to some extent can be transferred to the Faculty of, say, Faculty of Business Management, because there are some similar characteristics between these two faculty. Okay, so that is called transferability. Okay, the last one for addressing rigor in qualitative research is called confirmability, which is defined as the degree to which the findings of the research study could be confirmed by other researchers. That means other researcher can evaluate, can review, can assess, okay, our research, our results, our methods, our techniques, and they can confirm, okay, they can confirm what we have done or what we had conducted is considered valid, okay, acceptable. All right, so this is the comparison, okay, between quantitative and qualitative research. Validity is almost equivalent to credibility. Reliability is equivalent to dependability. Generalizability is almost equivalent to transferability. Objectivity is almost equivalent to confirmability. All right. So now we have reached to learning activity 2. So what do I expect you to do now? In my previous slide, I have mentioned in learning activity 1 you have to identify 2 research reports. So now using the same research report, okay, I want you to read the articles, try to understand, and then try to read and try to identify whether the researcher, the author, have addressed rigor in the study. Okay, they have addressed rigor in the study. So try to search for words such as validity, reliability, confirmability, transferable transferable transferability, confirmability. All right, so try to search for these words in the research report. All right, so let's look at the next content that is on research relevance. Okay, now how do you make sure that the research that you are doing is really relevant? Okay, so the aspect to address relevance is based on these 4 questions. Okay, number 1, does the research really address the real problem that is currently faced by the professionals, okay, in the field? Like in your for example, if you are doing on knowledge management, is the problem really happen and being faced by knowledge professional? Okay, knowledge management professional. If you are doing research on information system, is the problem is really happening and information professional is now experiencing or facing this problem? So the problem must be real, the challenges, the issues that you are addressing must be real. Okay, so that is to make sure that what you are doing is really relevant. If it is not real, okay, hypothetical only, so it is of no use. In other words, we call it useless. Okay, now second aspect of relevance is that the research must contribute significantly to the body of knowledge by offering solution to the problem. The first one, make sure the problem is real. Okay, it's real, so that people have interest, okay, to your study. Second, your study, your research must really provide, if possible, complete solution, if not partial solution to the problem. Okay, partial solution. It has to have a solution. No point you conducting a study, but the study ended up not giving any solution. So you are wasting resources, money, energy, time. Okay, so you embark on the research, make sure the findings will end up giving, if possible, complete solution. If not, at least you can solve the problem. Okay, part of the problem. The third one, it has to be focusing on contemporary issues, current issues. It can be technological issues, it can be organizational issues, it can be economic issue. Like now, all of us are facing this pandemic, COVID-19. Okay, so in our context, so how do we find problem that can, the current problem, the pandemic problem in our field, how we can actually help to alleviate this problem? Okay, from knowledge management perspective, information management perspective, or information system perspective. Okay, so how do we actually help to alleviate the problem? Like in the information system field, probably the development of My Sejahtera apps, can help control and keep trace and monitor the whereabouts of the rakyat, of the people, so that we can prevent them, from being inflicted or affected by this COVID-19. Okay, by those who have already been inflicted. Okay, the last one is that the research must be reported in the form of either a research article in a journal, or conference proceeding, or a research report which is accessible uh, accessible, that means the way you compose, the way you write the research also, you must make sure audience can really understand, okay, the content, okay. So the way it is written, the tone it is written, you know, the language used, okay, must be understandable by the audience. So no point you doing research and then you don't publish your research, you don't share your findings, so people will not get benefit. So relevance of research, okay, is being addressed by answering these 4 questions. Okay, now we have reached to learning activity 3. Okay, so still using the same research article or research report that you have collected. Okay, I want you to read and try to understand. And then do you think that the topic addressed by the researcher relevant based on the 4 questions that I have discussed earlier on? Okay, so why do you say so? Okay, please respond to this. We will discuss in our online meeting. Okay. All right, now the steps in research. Now, in our definition, we have mentioned that research involve activities. So, these activities are actually series of activities, a lot of activities, a lot of tasks, a lot of work have to be done in this research, and these include like problem definition, you know, setting the research objectives, okay, and then developing your research questions, developing theoretical framework if you are using or if you are doing quantitative research, developing hypothesis, and then you have to collect data, probably using research questionnaire, or you have to use interview, or probably observation, or sometimes you have to do experiment, you have to do simulation, and then once you have collected the data need to be analyzed using appropriate analysis technique. If you are doing quantitative, probably you need to use statistical techniques such as, you know, regression, ANOVA, or structural equation modeling, or nowadays people are very inclined to use artificial neural network, ANN. And once you have analyzed the data, you have to interpret the findings, okay, the results, and then from the findings you will draw conclusion, and then you will make conclusion with, to either, you know, to address the problems that we have defined earlier on. Okay, so these are the general activities that a researcher may have to go through, you know, in doing research. So this is a diagrammatical view on the steps can we that we can undertake in doing research. You know, we cannot run away in doing literature review. Okay, I will talk about at length what is meant by literature review. So in the literature review, we have to look at existing theory in relation to the phenomenon. Okay, if you are studying certain phenomenon, you have to look at the literature and try to search for theory that can actually accommodate that particular phenomenon. So from that theory, we will extend the theory, adopt that theory, and try to understand the phenomenon from that perspective, or from that from the lens of that theory. And then we develop the research questions and research objectives. So this phase 3 activities is called exploration stage. Okay, then we will decide on the research method. Either we are going to use, say, survey, or we want to use case study, or we may want to do grounded theory, or we want to use experimental design or quasi-experimental design. So each and every method has its own research design. So if you are using survey, for example, you know, in survey you have got certain design that you have to follow. Okay, so in the design it will include sampling, population, okay, and how you can address the findings to achieve what we call in the method also, there is a step, or there is an activity where you have to operationally define the variables involved. That means the aspect of interest, the variables. Okay, then this is where you will develop the research proposal, and then you will start collecting the data, analyzing the data, and then interpret the results, and then you will develop the research report. Okay, now this is another way taken from different source, how you can actually be involved in doing research. You identify the topic. Okay, same, you have to define the problem. We call it problem definition, or we call it problem statement, and then you will develop the research questions, or you develop the research objectives, okay, and then you determine the appropriate research method. From the research method that you have decided or determined, you have to design the research, and then you have to start collecting the data. Of course, before you collect the data, you have to develop the instrument for collecting the data, analyze the data, and finally you interpret the results. And from the results, you will match the results with the research question, research objective, and see whether the problem will be completely solved or partly solved through the research. All right, we are done on the steps of research. Okay, now this is another content that we have to discuss, that is about ethics. Okay, ethics is very crucial when you do research. Okay, because if you don't address ethics, people can always manipulate research for their personal interest. Okay, some organizations, some companies also sometimes they manipulate research because for their personal benefits, personal gains. So ethics, by definition, according to Webster dictionary, is conformance to the standard of conduct of a given profession or group. Okay, conformance to standard of conduct. Okay, that is definition of ethics. Now, one of the principles in ethics is voluntary participation. Okay, when you do research, okay, you should not force, you should not coerce, okay, participant or respondent, sometimes we call subjects, to participate in the research. You should make the participation voluntary. You should make the participation voluntary. It's up to the person, the individual. Either they want to participate or they do not want to participate. So there is no coercion. Okay, there is no threatening, okay, to make sure that the person involved in the research, and they should not be harmed. Okay, there's no way you should do that. Okay, you cannot harm them. Okay, if you harm them, in the form of, of course, in social science is not very apparent. In medicine or in pharmacy, sometimes they create drugs, or vaccine. Some of the vaccine, when they are doing the testing, can harm, the subject, the people. Okay, instead of curing or healing the person, the vaccine or the drug, okay, cause, or aggravate the disease, diseases, that the person is having. Okay, so this is the principle of research. That means making sure that the participation is voluntary, and there's no way you should be threatening or causing any injury or any harm, any form of harm to the participant. The next one is anonymity and confidentiality. Anonymity means the researcher, okay, sometimes you have access to the person, who are the respondent, but this person should not be clearly mentioned in your research report. So no specific names, okay, should explicitly be mentioned in your research report. That is anonymity. Okay, confidentiality means you don't expose what is being mentioned by the person. Okay, so whatever responses that the person gave, okay, should not be exposed to the public. Okay, disclosure. So usually researchers have an obligation to provide some information about their study to potential subject before data collection, to help them decide whether they want to participate or not to participate in the study. Okay, you will brief them, okay, about the research, and from there make them decide themselves whether they want to continue to participate in the research, or they want to, they will not want to participate. Okay, and then when it comes to analysis also, you have to be truthful. When you analyze, try not to doctor or manipulate the data, okay, to suit you, okay, to favor you. Okay, you want the data, example, you have certain hypothesis, and then You want that hypothesis to be supported, so you will doctor the data so that your hypothesis will be supported. So this is not ethical. Okay, this is unethical. All right. Okay, having understood the ethical aspect and ethical requirement, okay, now I want you to read, okay, the same research article and try to figure out whether the researcher had addressed ethical requirements, okay, in the two articles or in the two research report that you have collected. All right, now this is also something about ethics. Now, in any institution, academic institutions, they have set up what we call institutional review board. Okay, especially those who are pursuing a postgraduate degree, PhD or masters by research. Before they embark on data collection, they have to present into this institutional review board to make sure that their study, the process, the activity that they will follow or adopt will comply to certain ethical requirements. So the review board will decide whether what you have designed is considered ethical or unethical. All right, now in information system, this is an example. Just now when we define ethics, we say conformance to standards, okay, certain standards. It can be professional bodies, standards of professional bodies. I'm giving you an example by this Association of Information System. So in AIS, it has developed, okay, a code of conduct for doing research, and it has divided into two categories. The first category includes transgressions such as not respecting the rights of research subject, misrepresenting the originality of the research project, a lot of biasness, using data published by others without acknowledging them. You don't cite. Okay, these are what you call category 2, which is less serious. Category 1 is very serious offense, which include plagiarism, falsification of data. Uh, you don't actually collect data, but data you create by yourself. So this is category 1, which is considered very serious offense. Okay, so as a member of this association, like myself, I am a member of this Association of Information System. So I must try my level best to